What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American, here today to react and learn about some Canadian Heritage Minutes, which are these 1 minute long videos that teach you about really important moments and people throughout all of Canadian history. And today, I am continuing my journey watching all 100 episodes of the Heritage Minutes. I've currently seen 51 of the 100 Heritage Minutes. I have officially crossed the threshold. I have seen over half of all the Canadian Heritage Minutes, and what a journey it has been. I have learned some stuff about Canadian history and Canadian culture, let me tell you that. So today, I'm really excited to see what we have in terms of new Heritage Minutes I haven't seen before, starting with Baldwin and LaFontaine. Baldwin and LaFontaine. Never heard of it. Two politicians from Upper and Lower Canada. What is Upper and Lower Canada? Is that like a term that Canadians use? Or is that kind of like an older term? Where would Upper Canada start? Is that like at the territories, kinda? Like, I don't know, the Yukon? Or is that Upper Canada? I don't know. Anyway, two politicians from Upper and Lower Canada work together to help shape democratic reforms in all of Canada. Sounds extremely important. This is in 1841, almost 200 years ago. Let's see if we can get a little more information about this before we jump into watching the Heritage Minutes. The politics of cultural accommodation. Man, we're getting a little historical today, a little technical. Baldwin, LaFontaine, and responsible government. What exactly are they trying to discuss here? This is one of the great unheralded events in Canadian history. Really? Because I've never heard of this. I'm on the edge of my seat. This took place in September 1841 at an annual feast and ceremony of illumination at Sharon Temple, meeting place for the children of peace. What? Oh, we're at a temple? Where exactly are we in Canada? Sharon Temple, City of Toronto Archives. Okay. Not necessarily in Toronto. One of the great events in Canadian history is at a feast of illumination at Sharon Temple. William Baldwin ceded his nomination in the elected Assembly of Canada, recommending LaFontaine, a politician, lawyer. Okay. I have barely any idea what we're talking about. I'm going to be completely honest, but that's okay. This is a historical, important political event that occurred 200 years ago. That's all I really need to know. Let's take a look at the actual Heritage Minute and see if we can find out. Oh, what does that say? Sorry. I don't mean to pause it so soon, but Election Day in Quebec, 1841. Election Day. Election for what? Oh, they might have said in that article I was just looking at. Oh no, what was the position though? What do you call the leader of a province? I should know this. Like in the United States, if you're one of the leaders of a state, you might be the governor or a senator. What do you call the leader of a province in Canada? Is that what this is? Election Day in Quebec, okay. LaFontaine.
Do you vote? McCulloch!
Oh, wow.
Laissez-nous passer! Nous avons le droit de voter! Lousy rebel! Governor Sydenham said your lot ain't got no rights to nothing!
Whoa! Whoa! First of all, this is intense. I love this, actually. I love some of these older Heritage Minutes. They really go all out. Like, it's kind of real. They got the pitchforks and the torches. Literally, they're forming a mob. So clearly, there's two sides here arguing over whether they want to vote for Baldwin or LaFontaine. Some of them are speaking French, some of them are speaking English. I don't think that would actually happen if you're in Quebec. Like, you're speaking French, right? Are they just doing the English for my sake? So, thank you.
Laissez-nous passer! Nous avons le droit de voter! Lousy rebel! Governor Sydenham said your lot ain't got no rights to nothing!
Oh my god. Well, maybe this is saying, maybe it's not, like, dubbed in English. Is there a French-speaking side and an English-speaking side? Was there, like, a division in Quebec at this time? Because I really thought that everyone spoke French in Quebec. Like, I thought that's what it's known for. But I don't really know what it was like 200 years ago. Okay, let's keep going, though.
Oh, ça va. Faut passer.
Non, non. Pas de violence!
Wow.
Tout ça n'est qu'une moquerie! Une moquerie!
Wow. That took some serious restraint. So that's the side of LaFontaine. That sounds like the more French name, so I'm going to assume. And they're literally getting hit over the head, and LaFontaine is like, no violence. Which is really speaks to his character. Okay.
Robert Baldwin. Il veut que je me présente dans un comté d'Ontario.
Maybe it wasn't LaFontaine. I'm literally just going on what I see and what I think. This is LaFontaine, sitting in his cozy beach home. Maybe it's not on a beach, but his cozy little mansion, doing I don't know what. He got a letter from Robert Baldwin. Baldwin wants him to run in Ontario, not Quebec. The disagreement, the conflict took place in Quebec at that festival, at that temple, but we're talking about some kind of position in Ontario. Okay, this is a little complicated for me.
Welcome to Toronto.
Monsieur Baldwin, alors c'est bien vrai, vous m'offrez un de vos comtés ici à Toronto.
Mr. LaFontaine, think of the history we'll make when a French-Canadian runs and wins in York.
And they did.
What? So this is York? Is that in Toronto? I'm just not sure what the part at the beginning was. They were trying to, like, fight for their right to vote, but the vote hadn't even... I mean, Baldwin hadn't even extended this invitation to LaFontaine yet to run. So what were they arguing about in the beginning? Maybe that was just showing the conflict that was brewing in Quebec, or maybe other parts of Canada. And then Baldwin here has like the foresight and the openness to be like, maybe it's important at this time that a French Canadian gets elected into a position of power. Maybe that's important. Maybe because of the conflicts that are happening that we saw with the English and French speakers arguing. Okay, I'm going to go with that.
And they did make history. Together,
Wow.
Robert Baldwin and Louis Hippolyte LaFontaine would forge the basis of responsible government in Canada.
They started and forged and created the basis of responsible government in Canada. Very cool. I don't think I got everything out of this Heritage Minute that it was trying to teach me, because it was a little dense, historically speaking, and I don't know all the background, but very interesting. Obviously a really important moment in Canadian history, especially for French Canadian and the rest of Canada's, like, history and getting along and growing that relationship. Very interesting. Certainly a part of Canadian history I don't know much about. But let's keep going here. Next we have Lucille Teasdale. Lucille Teasdale? Yeah, I think that's how you say it. One of the first female surgeons in Canada. Wow. Lucille Teasdale devotes her life to health care in Uganda. Oh my God. Wow. I wonder what influenced her to go to Uganda, of all places. This is one of the first female surgeons in all of Canada, in all of history? That's incredible. Surgeon, humanitarian, She was a visionary. Lucille Teasdale was one of Canada's first female surgeons. Traveled to Gulu, Uganda, to practice medicine and help those in need. Wow, that is extraordinarily selfless. I mean, to spend her whole life honing her craft, probably breaking through some sorts of barriers to become a female surgeon in this time period, and then deciding to leave her home, which is very selfless, to basically devote her entire self to living in another country, Uganda. I wonder why she chose Uganda. Maybe they'll explain a little bit more about this, but she sounds like an extraordinary woman. An extraordinary Canadian woman. Uganda, 1962. Oh, there she is.
This is me and my mother, Lucille Teasdale, one of Canada's first female surgeons.
Wow.
She came here with my Italian father to a medical mission in Africa. Despite 20 years of civil war.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know anything about Ugandan history or anything. 20 years civil war, and this community obviously needed her. So thank God for her.
Together they built a modern 500-bed hospital.
Wow.
Do you have a mother? Mama Naskumituwin?
Dr. Lucille!
Wow, so this civil war is happening as she is like providing care in Uganda. So they really needed her. Oh my God. These I don't mean to laugh at this poor person's bodily wounds, but the stuff that they show on these Heritage Minutes, like, you really never know. I didn't expect someone to stick their hand in a giant gaping flesh wound today. That's not what I expected, but here we are.
Disinfect yourself.
Oh.
No time. This man's bleeding to death. I'll take antibiotics later.
She performed the last of her 13,000 operations not long before she died of AIDS in 1996.
13,000 operations. So saved at least 13,000 lives. That's insane. Then she died. Did they say from AIDS?
Not long before she died of AIDS in 1996.
That's very sad. 1996! Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Lucille Teasdale. This is a fairly recent Heritage Minute feature. She died in 96. Wow. Very sad hearing about her death, but what an amazing legacy. Incredible. She must be quite famous in Uganda as well as Canada. That's incredible. I've never heard about her, but I'm really glad I did. That's one of the things I love about these Heritage Minutes. Love learning about these amazing stories that I otherwise definitely would never hear about this. Like, there's no way. So, this is great. And finally today, let's look at Naskumituwin. You'll have to forgive me for butchering this. It sounds like I'm casting a spell or something. Naskumituwin. Is that insensitive? It might be. Forgive me. Naskumituwin. Naskumituwin. I think that's correct. It's the name of a treaty, I think. What is this all about? The making of Treaty 9 from the perspective of historical witness George Spence. The making of Treaty 9. What is Treaty 9? Are treaties numbered? It's witnessed from George Spence's point of view, an 18-year-old Cree hunter from Albany, James Bay. What is a Cree hunter? Cree. I feel like I've heard that word, Cree. Sounds like it might be like a native Canadian type of name or something like that, like a tribe or native people in Canada, maybe Cree. Let's see if there's any more info on this. I feel like that's what it is. Yeah, indigenous people in Canada. Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about some kind of treaty. Treaty 9, one of the 11 post-Confederation treaties negotiated negotiated with Indigenous people in Canada. It covers most of present-day Ontario north of the height of land dividing the Great Lakes. Here we go. The purpose of Treaty 9 was to purchase the interests of the resident Cree and Ojibwe peoples to lands and resources to make way for white settlement and resource development? Was this good for the Cree people? Was this a good thing? Did they want to do this treaty and make way for white settlement and development? It contained provisions for cash treaty payments, the creation of reserves, education, hunting, fishing, trapping rights. Okay, very good. This was something that Canadians were working out with the Indigenous Canadian people, and they were basically signing a treaty to make use of that land, but in a peaceful way, and making sure to create reservations, education, hunting, cash. Nothing wrong with a little cash. All right, let's learn a bit more about this in the actual video.
Treaty.
This is Fort Albany, Ontario. Okay, 1905.
In Cree is Naskumituwin, an oral agreement.
An oral agreement? Naskumituwin. That's how you pronounce it. It's an oral agreement? Did they actually sign anything?
And our agreements were always spoken.
Huh. Wow.
For George Spence, the core of treaty was Wichihioin, to help one another.
This is very cool. I really don't know much of anything about the Indigenous Canadian people in Canada or their history. So I'm actually really happy this is kind of focusing on that.
And so we, the commissioners...
He was there for the making of Treaty 9, where the Cree were told...
We will honor this agreement together, for as long as the sun shines and the waters flow.
The Cree made their mark because they were assured that the land would be shared.
Did they just stab him? What was that? I'm sorry. I get distracted by the most random things, like how gigantic this treaty is. Was it really that huge? And, did they actually poke him with that pen? Like, that looked like it hurt. Anyway, seems like the Cree people, like, I thought this was going to be a bad thing. This is like a peaceful treaty working out, like, terms that they're agreeing to.
The Cree made their mark because they were assured that the land would be shared, and they would always be able to harvest what they needed.
Okay.
George Spence was my great-grandfather. In his life, he saw many promises of the treaty go unfulfilled.
Treaties were essential to the creation of Canada. First Nations still fight for the agreements to be honored.
Whoa, no. I was afraid of this. I don't know why, but I had a feeling this was not gonna be like a positive thing. I don't know, maybe it's because of the stuff I know about Native Americans and some of the broken promises like here in the United States kind of helps me relate a little bit. This was a treaty between the Cree people in Ontario and basically Canada, I guess the Canadian government, to promise them money and lands and resources that would be shared. And is this true? Some of those promises haven't been lived up to or just blatantly broken. That's extraordinarily sad and bad. That's not right at all. So I'm actually glad they went ahead and made this its own Heritage Minute, because this definitely needs awareness if that's the case. Just because you sign a treaty 100 years ago, like, you heard the man in the Heritage Minute, as long as the sun shines and the rivers flow, we will uphold this treaty. He signed it with his blood, for crying out loud. And so that's honestly super sad to hear it's not being lived up to. And the descendants of the Cree people to this day, rightfully so, are probably quite upset. So I'm glad this has brought some awareness to that issue. Wow, fascinating. Really, really interesting Heritage Minutes today with all sorts of different topics. That's what I love about this. So anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these Heritage Minutes here today. That'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture and learning things and seeing things about Canada for the first time, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.